When Alpha King Theron Nightbane encounters a silver-eyed rogue healer trespassing in his royal forest, his wolf recognizes what his broken heart dares not hope for the daughter stolen from him 18 years ago. But as he pursues the fierce young woman who fights him at every turn, refusing to believe she could be royalty, one devastating question remains. How do you convince someone to accept a crown when they've spent their entire life learning to survive without a kingdom? The massive black wolf crashed through the forest like thunder rolling down a mountain. King Theron Nightbane's paws hit the muddy ground with desperate force as he searched for any trace of his missing daughter. Rain poured from dark clouds above, soaking his thick fur and turning the earth into slippery mess beneath him. For 3 long months, he had hunted through these woods every single night. His royal duties sat abandoned back at the castle, while his wolf demanded answers that never came. The other wolves in his pack whispered behind his back, saying their king had lost his mind along with his child. Maybe they were right. His sensitive nose caught something different in the wet air tonight. Not the usual scents of deer and rabbits that lived in these trees. This smell made his heart pound faster, and his wolf stand completely still with shock. It was the scent of another wolf, but not just any wolf. A female with something familiar about her that made his chest ache with old pain. Theron shifted back into his human shape, his tall body appearing between the dark tree trunks. Water dripped from his long black hair as he pulled on the clothes he carried in a bag around his neck. His silver eyes scanned the forest shadows, looking for movement. The scent trail led deeper into the forbidden part of his territory, where no wolf was supposed to go. Every step forward felt like walking toward hope and heartbreak at the same time. 18 years ago, enemy wolves had attacked his castle during the worst battle his kingdom had ever seen. They had stolen his baby daughter from her nursery while he fought for his people's lives. His beautiful wife Elena had died trying to protect their child, and both females had vanished into the night like smoke. The oracle's words echoed in his memory as he followed the mysterious scent. Look for the silver-eyed wolf who runs with outcasts. She carries your bloodline but knows no royal name. Those strange words had given him the first real hope he'd felt since that terrible night of loss. A branch snapped somewhere ahead. Theron froze and listened with his super-sharp wolf hearing. Soft footsteps moved through the wet leaves, careful and quiet like someone who knew how to hunt. His pulse raced as he crept forward, using skills he'd learned as a young wolf before he became king. Through a gap in the trees, he saw her. A young woman knelt beside a wounded deer, her gentle hands glowing with soft healing magic. Long golden hair fell around her shoulders like sunlight, and when she looked up at the hurt animal, Theron's world stopped spinning. Her eyes were pure silver, exactly like his own, exactly like his lost daughter's had been. The woman whispered soothing words to the frightened deer as she worked to heal its injured leg. Her magic flowed like warm honey, closing the deep cut and making the animal's pain disappear. Theron had never seen healing power so strong or so naturally kind. This was no ordinary wolf. His heart hammered against his ribs as he studied her face. She looked about 18 years old, the exact age his daughter would be now. The shape of her nose and the curve of her smile reminded him so much of Elena that his eyes burned with unshed tears. But he forced himself to stay hidden and watch. Could this really be Serafina? His precious little pup who had been torn from his arms so long ago? The timing was right. The location matched the oracle's vision, and those silver eyes were as rare as diamonds among their kind. Only his family bloodline carried such unusual coloring. The healer finished her work and helped the deer stand on its newly strong legs. The grateful animal nuzzled her cheek before bouncing away into the forest. She smiled with pure joy at its recovery, and that expression hit Theron like lightning. He had seen that exact same smile on his baby daughter's face during the few precious months he'd been able to hold her. But he couldn't just rush forward and demand answers. If this was truly his daughter, she had been raised by strangers who might have filled her head with lies about him. She might run away or fight him if he revealed who he was too quickly. He needed to be smart about this. even though every instinct screamed at him to gather her in his arms and never let go again. Taking a deep breath, Theron stepped out from behind the oak tree where he'd been hiding. His boot deliberately crunched on a fallen branch to announce his presence. The young woman's head snapped up, and those stunning silver eyes met his across the small clearing. Time seemed to freeze as they stared at each other. Father and daughter, though neither dared speak that truth yet. The air between them crackled with recognition that went deeper than conscious thought. His wolf whined softly in his chest, sensing family, sensing home. "You're not supposed to be here," the silver-eyed woman said, jumping to her feet with the quick grace of a natural fighter. Her voice carried a slight tremor, but she lifted her chin with brave defiance that made Theron's heart swell with fierce pride. This young woman had clearly learned to stand up for herself in a dangerous world. Good. His daughter would need that strength for what was coming. "I could say the same about you," Theron replied, keeping his voice gentle despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. "These are royal lands. Only pack members with special permission can hunt here." She took a step backward, her hand moving to touch something hanging around her neck, a pendant of some kind, though Theron couldn't see it clearly through her simple brown shirt. Her whole body tensed like she was ready to run or fight at any second. "I wasn't hunting," she said firmly. "That deer was hurt and needed help. I don't believe in letting innocent creatures suffer just because of invisible boundary lines drawn on maps." The fire in her words made Theron want to smile. Elena had always spoken exactly like that when she felt passionate about something. Their daughter had definitely inherited her mother's fierce sense of justice, along with her healing gifts. "What's your name?" he asked, moving a tiny bit closer while trying not to scare her away. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Those silver eyes studied his face like she was trying to solve a complicated puzzle. Something flickered in her expression, confusion, maybe even a hint of recognition that she couldn't quite understand. "Sarah," she finally said. "And you are?" Theron's breath caught in his throat. Sarah. It was close enough to Seraphina to make his wolf howl with joy inside his chest. Someone had clearly shortened his daughter's real name, probably to hide her true identity from anyone who might be searching for her. "I'm Theron," he said, leaving off his royal title for now. "Thank you for helping the deer. Your healing magic is very impressive." Sarah's eyes widened slightly at the compliment, like she wasn't used to having her abilities praised. That made anger burn in Theron's gut. Whoever had raised his daughter should have been celebrating her incredible gifts every single day, not making her feel ordinary. "You have unusual eyes," she said suddenly, tilting her head to study him better. "I've never seen silver like that before." "Neither have I," Theron replied honestly, "except when I look in a mirror." The words hung between them like a bridge neither was ready to cross yet. Sarah's hand moved to her pendant again, fingers closing around it like it brought her comfort. Theron desperately wanted to know what that piece of jewelry was and where she'd gotten it. "Where do you live?" he asked, trying to sound casual even though the answer might be the most important thing anyone had ever told him. "With my pack," Sarah said vaguely. "We travel around a lot, helping people who need healing or protection." Rogues. Theron's heart clenched as he realized his daughter had been living as an outcast wolf without a permanent home or territory. She should have been growing up in a palace, learning to rule a kingdom and surrounded by wolves who loved her. Instead, she'd been wandering the wilderness like a homeless orphan. But at least someone had taken care of her. Someone had taught her to use her healing magic and given her the confidence to help wounded animals. He owed those wolves a debt he could never repay for keeping his daughter alive and safe. "That's noble work," he said sincerely. "The world needs more healers." Sarah studied his face again with those piercing silver eyes that saw too much. "You talk like someone important. Are you from the royal pack?" Theron's pulse jumped. This was dangerous territory. If he admitted who he really was, she might panic and disappear into the forest forever. But if he lied, he'd be starting their relationship on false ground. "I am," he said carefully. But tonight I'm just a man who's grateful to meet someone with such a kind heart. Something shifted in Sarah's expression. The wariness softened just a little, replaced by curiosity that made her look even more like Elena. His wife had always been fascinated by new people and their stories. "What brings a royal wolf into the deep forest alone?" she asked. "Don't you have guards who worry about your safety?" "I'm searching for something very important that I lost a long time ago," Theron said, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't hide. "Something more precious than all the treasure in my kingdom." Sarah took another step back, clearly picking up on the intensity in his words. "What kind of something?" Theron looked directly into those beautiful silver eyes that matched his own and made a choice that would change both their lives forever. "Someone," he corrected gently. "I'm searching for someone I love more than my own life." Sarah's bare feet pounded against the forest floor as branches whipped past her face. Her heart hammered so loud she was sure every creature in the woods could hear it. The stranger's silver eyes haunted her thoughts, eyes that looked exactly like her own when she stared into still water. She burst into the rogue camp, where cooking fires sent smoke spiraling into the evening sky. Children laughed as they chased each other between the simple tents. Warriors sharpened weapons, while elders told stories. This place had been her whole world for as long as she could remember. "Kale!" she called out, searching for the graying man who had raised her. Her pack leader looked up from where he sat, mending a torn shirt. One glance at her face made him drop his needle. "What happened? You look like you've been running from death itself." "I met someone." The words tumbled out faster than water over rocks. "A man in the royal forest. He had silver eyes just like mine. He asked about my parents, Kyle. The way he looked at me, it was like he was seeing a ghost." Kyle's weathered hands went very still. The shirt slipped from his fingers and fell to the ground. Around them, the normal sounds of camp life continued, but Sarah noticed how other pack members had started to listen. Their conversation was drawing attention she didn't want. "Tell me exactly what he looked like," Kale said in a voice she'd never heard before. "Quiet, careful, afraid, tall, dark hair, strong like an alpha, but more than that, power rolled off him like heat from a fire. And those eyes." She touched her own face. They were exactly like mine, down to the little gold flecks around the edges. The color drained from Kale's face, like water from a broken bucket. He stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. "We need to talk, alone." He led her away from the others to a small cave at the edge of their territory. The same cave where he told her bedtime stories when she was little, where he taught her to shift for the first time, where he'd bandaged her wounds after her first hunt went wrong. Inside, away from listening ears, Kale lit a small torch. The dancing light made shadows jump across the stone walls. For a long moment, he just stared at her like he was memorizing her face. "There's something I should have told you years ago," he began, his voice heavy as stones. "Something I swore I'd take to my grave." Sarah's stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" "Your parents. You always believed they died when you were a baby. That I found you alone in the woods, crying and cold." He took a shaky breath. That wasn't the whole truth. The torch flame flickered, and Sarah felt like the ground was shifting under her feet. "What do you mean?" 18 years ago, war came to our lands. The Crimson Pack attacked the royal castle during the new moon, when defenses were weakest. I was a palace guard then, not a rogue leader. His eyes grew distant, lost in painful memories. The fighting was brutal. Wolves fell like autumn leaves. Sarah's mouth went dry. "The royal castle? Your mother, Queen Elena, was the most beautiful Omega the kingdom had ever seen, but she was also the fiercest. When enemies breached the nursery, she fought like 10 warriors to protect you." Tears started rolling down Kale's cheeks. "She pressed you into my arms and made me promise to keep you safe, to take you far away where no one would think to look for a royal child." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. "No, That's not possible. I'm nobody special. I'm just a rogue healer who can't even shift properly half the time. You're Princess Seraphina Nightbane, heir to the Shadowmere throne, daughter of the Alpha King. The torch slipped from Kale's numb fingers and clattered to the cave floor. Darkness swallowed them, but not before Sarah saw the truth written in every line of his face. "The man you met today," Kale whispered in the black. "Did he wear a crown?" Sarah's world tilted sideways. The stranger's commanding presence, the way her wolf had wanted to submit to him, the desperate hope she'd glimpsed in those silver eyes that matched her own. "Oh no," she breathed. "What have I done?" Dawn painted the sky blood red when the thunder of hoofbeats shattered the peaceful morning. Sarah jerked awake in her bedroll as shouts erupted throughout the camp. Warriors scrambled for weapons while mothers gathered children close. "Royal guards!" someone screamed. "They found us!" Sarah rolled out of her blankets and shifted into her wolf form in one smooth motion. Her silver-gray fur bristled as the scent of armed men and war horses filled her nose. Through the trees, she could see armor glinting in the early light. Then she saw him. King Theron Nightbane sat astride a massive black horse, a crown of dark metal circling his brow. Royal armor covered his broad chest, and a sword hung at his side. He looked every inch the powerful ruler she'd heard about in whispered stories. But his eyes, those silver eyes that matched her own, searched the camp with desperate hunger. "By order of the crown, surrender the girl called Sarah," his voice boomed across the clearing. "She will not be harmed, but she must come with us." Around her, her pack brothers and sisters snarled and snapped. These people had raised her, loved her, protected her for 18 years. They wouldn't give her up without a fight. "Never!" Kale shouted back, stepping forward with his own sword drawn. "She's under our protection." The king's face hardened. "I'm not asking, old friend." "Old friend?" Sarah's wolf ears perked forward. There was history between these two men. History Kale had never mentioned. "Stand down, Kale. You know why I'm here. You know what she means to me." The king's voice cracked slightly on the last words. "I know what you think she means," Kale shot back. "But she's not your property to claim." That's when the king's eyes found Sarah among her pack. Even in wolf form, he knew her instantly. The recognition hit like lightning between them. Father and daughter seeing each other clearly for the first time. "Seraphina," he whispered, and the name carried all the love and loss of 18 years. Sarah's human mind reeled even as her wolf responded to the alpha command in his voice. Part of her wanted to run to him, to accept the family she'd always dreamed of having. But a larger part rebelled against being claimed like a lost object. She shifted back to human form and stood tall among her pack. "I am not yours to take." "You are my daughter. I am a rogue," she snarled back. "These people raised me when you couldn't protect me." Pain flashed across the king's features, but his jaw set with royal determination. "Guards, take her, carefully." That's when the fighting started. Sarah had been in pack battles before, but nothing like this. Royal soldiers with silver weapons meant to subdue shifters clashed with desperate rogues protecting their own. The metallic ring of sword on sword mixed with the growls and howls of wolves. She fought like the rogue she'd been raised to be, dirty, fast, using every trick Kale had taught her. Her claws ripped through armor while her teeth found weak spots in their defenses. Around her, her pack fought just as fiercely. But they were outnumbered 3-1. A silver net, designed specifically for catching shifters, tangled around her legs as she tried to dodge past two guards. She went down hard, her shoulder hitting the rocky ground with a sickening crack. "Enough!" the king's voice thundered over the battlefield. "Pull back! No one else gets hurt!" But Sarah was already fighting free of the net, rage and betrayal fueling her strength. Silver burned where it touched her skin, but she pushed through the pain. With a final desperate surge, she broke free and leaped away from the soldiers. "You want me?" she called out to the king as she backed toward the forest edge. "Then catch me yourself. But know this, I will never stop running from a father who took 18 years to find me." She turned and plunged into the deep woods, her pack's battle cries fading behind her. Branches tore at her clothes and thorns cut her skin, but she didn't slow down. Behind her, she heard the king roar a single word that stopped her heart. "Seraphina!" But she was already gone, swallowed by shadows and driven by a pain that had no name. The hunt had begun, and this time, she would make him work for every mile. As she ran deeper into the wilderness, one thought pounded through her mind with every step. If he really was her father, why did claiming her feel like the ultimate betrayal? Blood dripped from Sarah's claws as she crouched behind the fallen oak tree. The royal hunting party had been tracking her for 3 days now, but something felt different this time. The king wasn't trying to capture her anymore. He was trying to talk to her. "I know you can hear me, Seraphina," his voice carried through the morning mist. "Your mother used to hide in places just like this when she was upset." Sarah's heart jumped. Nobody had ever told her anything about her real mother. The rogue pack that raised her only knew she'd been found as a baby, clutching a silver pendant and crying in the woods. She peeked around the tree trunk. King Theron sat alone on a rock, his fancy royal clothes replaced with simple hunting gear. His crown was nowhere to be seen. For the first time, he looked like just a regular person, a tired, sad person. "Elena was the strongest wolf I ever met," he continued, staring at his hands. "She could fight off 5 attackers and still have energy to sing you lullabies afterward." Sarah's throat felt tight. Her adoptive father, Cale, had always called her Little Star, but never explained why. Now she wondered if her real mother had called her that too. "The night you were taken, she fought until her very last breath to protect you," the king's voice cracked. "I was fighting other battles, thinking the nursery was safe. I was wrong." Against her better judgment, Sarah found herself creeping closer. Her wolf was practically purring at the sound of his voice, recognizing something deep and familiar that her human mind couldn't understand. "She made me promise something before she died," he whispered, finally looking up. His silver eyes, so much like her own, were wet with tears. "She made me swear I'd never stop looking for you, no matter how long it took." Sarah stepped out from behind the tree. "You're lying." "I wish I was." He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden toy, a carved wolf with silver-painted eyes. "This was yours. Elena made it herself when you were born." Sarah's hands shook as she took the toy. The moment her fingers touched the wood, memories flooded back. Not clear pictures, but feelings. Warmth, safety, the scent of wildflowers, and the sound of gentle humming. "I remember this," she breathed. "I remember someone singing to me." "Your mother sang the old pack songs," Theron said softly. "She wanted you to know where you came from, even if something happened to us." "Why didn't you find me sooner?" The question burst out of her, angry and hurt and desperate. "I was alone for so long. I thought nobody wanted me. I looked everywhere." His voice was raw with pain. "Every town, every pack, every hidden cave in the kingdom. The people who took you were smart. They knew how to disappear. By the time I got close, they'd moved you again." Sarah felt something cracking inside her chest, like ice breaking apart in spring. She'd spent 18 years believing she wasn't worth searching for, that she was just another unwanted rogue. But this man, this king, had never stopped looking. "I don't know how to be a princess," she whispered. "Good," he said, surprising her. "I need someone who knows how to be strong without a crown. The kingdom needs someone who understands what it's like to have nothing, so they can help others who have nothing too." A horn sounded in the distance. Royal guards were approaching fast, their wolves howling warnings. Sarah tensed, ready to run again. "They're not here to capture you," Theron said quickly. "There's trouble at the castle. Someone's challenging your right to be here." "My right? I never said I wanted to stay." "It doesn't matter what you want anymore," he said grimly. "The other alphas heard rumors about you. They think a rogue-raised girl would make the kingdom weak. They're demanding proof that you're really my daughter. And if I can't prove it? His eyes hardened with ancient royal authority. Then they'll try to kill you to prevent any future claims to the throne. The great hall of the castle buzzed with tension as angry voices filled the air. Sarah walked beside her father, trying not to show how terrified she felt. Hundreds of werewolves from different packs had gathered, their eyes glowing with suspicion and challenge. "She smells like a rogue," someone shouted from the crowd. "No royal blood in her. Look at those clothes. She dresses like a beggar. The king has been fooled by a clever fake." At the front of the hall stood 3 alphas Sarah had never seen before. The one in the middle was enormous, with scars covering his arms and a cruel smile on his face. His scent made her wolf want to hide. "Marcus Ironwood," Theron muttered under his breath. "He's wanted my throne for 20 years. Marcus stepped forward, his voice booming over the crowd. "Your Majesty, I respect your grief over your lost daughter, but we cannot allow sentiment to destroy our kingdom. This girl could be anyone." "She has my eyes," Theron said coldly. "She carries Elena's scent. She is my blood." Eyes can be faked with magic. Scents can be copied with potions. Marcus's smile grew wider. "But there is one test that cannot be cheated." Sarah's stomach dropped. She'd heard stories about the old tests, brutal challenges that could kill you if you failed. "The trial of truth," Marcus announced. "Let her shift into her wolf form before all of us. Royal blood always shows itself in the wolf's markings. If she is truly yours, she'll bear the Nightbane star on her forehead." Sarah's heart pounded. She'd never shifted in front of so many people before. What if she didn't have the mark? What if she really wasn't Theron's daughter? Just some orphan who happened to look like him. "I accept," she heard herself say, though her voice sounded far away. The crowd fell silent as space cleared in the center of the hall. Sarah stepped into the circle, feeling hundreds of eyes watching her every move. Her father's face was tight with worry, but he nodded encouragingly. Sarah closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. The change came easily. It always had. Her bones stretched and reformed. Her muscles shifted. Thick gray fur sprouted across her skin. In seconds, she stood on 4 paws instead of 2 feet. Gasps echoed through the hall. On her forehead, glowing silver against her gray fur, was a perfect 6-pointed star, the mark of the Nightbane royal line. But Marcus wasn't finished. "Bloodline marks can be painted on," he snarled. "I demand the trial of combat. If she is truly royal, she'll have the strength to defend her claim." "She's just learned who she is," Theron protested. "This is not fair." "Life is not fair, Your Majesty. The crown demands strength." Marcus began to shift, his body growing massive and dark. "I challenge her right to exist." Sarah shifted back to human form, her mind racing. She'd never fought an alpha before, just regular wolves and the occasional bear. Marcus was huge, experienced, and angry. He could kill her without breaking a sweat. But looking around the hall, she saw faces that reminded her of her own past. Omega wolves, standing in the back, trying to make themselves invisible. Young wolves who looked hungry and scared. People who'd been forgotten by those in power. "I accept your challenge," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "But I'm not fighting for the right to be royal. I'm fighting for the right to help wolves who've been thrown away, just like I was." Marcus laughed, a sound like breaking bones. "Noble words from a mongrel bitch. Let's see if you can back 'em up." The circle expanded as the 2 alphas faced each other. Sarah's wolf was strong, but Marcus was a monster, twice her size with fangs like daggers. When he lunged, she barely managed to dodge, his claws missing her throat by inches. The crowd roared as the fight began in earnest. Sarah used her speed, dancing around Marcus's attacks while looking for openings. But he was smart too, herding her toward the walls where she'd have less room to move. A massive paw caught her across the ribs, sending her tumbling. Pain exploded through her side as she hit the stone floor. Marcus stalked toward her, victory gleaming in his yellow eyes. "Any last words, little rogue?" Sarah spat blood and grinned. "Yeah, you talk too much." She rolled aside as he leaped, then twisted up to rake her claws across his belly. Marcus howled in rage and pain, stumbling back. But now Sarah could smell his fear beneath the anger. The fight continued, brutal and desperate, neither wolf giving ground. But slowly, Sarah realized something. She was faster, hungrier, more desperate than Marcus had expected. He'd grown soft from years of comfortable leadership. When the end came, it was swift. Marcus overextended on a killing blow, and Sarah ducked under his guard to sink her teeth into his throat. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to end the fight. Marcus collapsed, gasping. "I yield." The hall erupted in cheers and howls. Sarah stood over her defeated opponent, blood dripping from her wounds, and looked around at the faces watching her. Some showed respect now, others fear, but none showed contempt. "I am Seraphina Nightbane," she declared, her voice hoarse but strong. "Daughter of the lost, protector of the forgotten. I claim my birthright not by blood alone, but by right of combat and strength of will." But even as the crowd celebrated, Sarah caught a scent that made her wolf's hackles rise. In the shadows at the back of the hall, someone was watching with hate-filled eyes and the smell of dark magic clinging to their clothes. The real danger was just beginning. Blood dripped from Sarah's knuckles as she stood in the castle's main courtyard, facing the biggest crowd she'd ever seen. Every wolf in the kingdom seemed to be watching her, their eyes glowing in the torchlight like tiny stars. Some looked excited, others looked angry, and a few looked like they wanted to run away. Marcus Ironwood stepped into the fighting circle across from her. He was huge, with muscles like tree trunks and scars covering his arms. His yellow eyes reminded Sarah of a snake getting ready to strike. The crowd got quiet when he smiled, showing teeth that looked sharp enough to cut stone. "Little girl," Marcus called out, his voice booming across the courtyard. "You should go back to playing with dolls instead of pretending to be a real wolf." Sarah wiped the blood from her hands and grinned right back at him. "And you should learn some new insults instead of using ones from 100 years ago." The crowd laughed, and Marcus's face turned red. That made Sarah feel good, but she knew making him angry would also make him more dangerous. She glanced at her father, who sat on his throne looking worried. He gave her a tiny nod that said he believed in her. The fight bell rang, and everything changed. Marcus shifted into his wolf form so fast it looked like magic. One second he was a man, the next he was a massive gray beast charging straight at her. Sarah barely had time to dodge as his claws scraped the stone where she'd been standing. She rolled away and shifted mid-tumble, her clothes tearing as her wolf form took over. Her silver-gray fur caught the firelight as she spun to face him. Marcus was bigger, but Sarah had spent years running from danger in the wild. She was faster. They circled each other like dancers in a deadly ballet. Marcus lunged, and Sarah slipped under his attack, her teeth finding his shoulder. He roared and spun, trying to shake her off, but she held on tight. The taste of his blood filled her mouth as the crowd cheered. But Marcus had more tricks than she expected. He slammed his side into the stone wall, crushing Sarah between his body and the hard surface. Pain shot through her ribs as she let go and dropped to the ground. Stars danced in front of her eyes, and for a scary moment, she couldn't breathe. Marcus stood over her, panting hard. "Stay down, little princess. This is what real fighting looks like." Sarah's vision cleared, and anger burned away her pain. She thought about all the times people had called her weak, all the nights she'd gone hungry, all the years she'd wondered if anyone would ever want her. This wolf didn't know anything about real fighting. She swept her legs under Marcus, sending him crashing to the ground. Before he could get up, she was on him, her claws at his throat. The crowd gasped as she pressed just hard enough to draw blood. "I yield," Marcus whispered, his eyes wide with surprise. Sarah stepped back and shifted to human form, not caring that her clothes were torn and bloody. She looked around at all the watching faces, seeing respect where there had been doubt before. "I'm not fighting for a crown," she announced, her voice carrying across the silent courtyard. "I'm fighting for the right to choose my own path. I'm fighting for every wolf who's ever been told they don't belong." The cheering started small, with just a few voices, but it grew like a wildfire. Soon the whole courtyard was roaring with approval, and even some of the nobles who had looked down on her were clapping. An old woman stepped forward from the crowd. Sarah recognized her as Elena Moonwhisper, the kingdom's most respected elder. She carried a small wooden box that looked ancient. "Child," Elena said, her voice crackling like autumn leaves, "your mother left something for you before she died. Something that was meant to wait until you proved yourself worthy." Sarah's heart stopped. Her mother had left her something? Her hands shook as Elena opened the box, revealing a silver bracelet covered in tiny moon-shaped charms. Each charm caught the firelight and threw it back like captured starlight. "She wore this on the day you were born," Elena explained. "She said it would help you remember that even in the darkest night, there's always light to guide you home." As Elena fastened the bracelet around Sarah's wrist, something magical happened. The charms began to glow with a soft silver light, and suddenly Sarah could feel something she'd never felt before. It was like a warm hand on her shoulder, like someone whispering that everything would be okay. She looked up at her father, tears running down her cheeks. He was crying too, but he was also smiling, the biggest smile she'd ever seen. "Welcome home, my daughter," he said. And for the first time since finding out who she really was, Sarah truly believed she belonged. 6 months later, Sarah woke up to the sound of birds singing outside her bedroom window instead of the howling wind that used to wake her in the rogue camps. She stretched like a cat in her soft bed, still not quite used to sleeping somewhere safe and warm every night. A gentle knock on her door made her sit up. "Come in," she called, already knowing it was her father by his scent. King Theron entered carrying a tray of her favorite breakfast, honey cakes and wild berry tea. He'd started bringing her breakfast every morning after learning she used to go days without eating when she lived with the rogues. It was his way of making sure she never felt hungry or forgotten again. "Big day today," he said, setting the tray on her bedside table. "The new healing center opens, and 3 kingdoms are sending representatives to see what we've built." Sarah's eyes lit up. The healing center had been her idea, a place where any injured wolf could get help, no matter what pack they came from or how much money they had. Some of the nobles had argued against it, saying it would be too expensive, but Sarah had convinced them it was the right thing to do. "Are you nervous?" her father asked, sitting on the edge of her bed like he used to do when she was little and had nightmares. Well, like she imagined he would have done if he'd been there. "A little," Sarah admitted. "What if people don't think a former rogue can really help run a kingdom?" Theron smiled and touched the silver bracelet on her wrist, the one her mother had left her. The moon charms still glowed softly whenever Sarah felt unsure of herself, like they were reminding her she was stronger than she knew. "Do you know what your mother used to say about that?" he asked. "She said the best leaders are the ones who remember what it feels like to need help." After breakfast, they walked through the castle gardens together. Sarah loved this time of day when the flowers were covered in morning dew and the air smelled like fresh grass and hope. They passed the fountain where she'd first learned to shift properly, the training grounds where she'd practiced fighting, and the library where she'd spent hours learning to read the old royal books. Everything looked different now than it had when she first arrived. Back then, the castle had felt like a beautiful prison. Now, it felt like home. "Your Majesty," a voice called from across the garden. Sarah turned to see Kale, her old pack leader, jogging toward them. He visited the castle often now, helping to coordinate between the royal wolves and the rogue packs scattered throughout the kingdom. "Kale!" Sarah ran to hug him, breathing in his familiar scent of pine trees and campfires. "I didn't know you were coming today." Wouldn't miss the opening, he said, grinning. Besides, I have news. 3 more orphaned cubs found permanent homes this week, and the Eastern Territories want to copy our healing center model. Sarah felt her heart swell with pride. When she'd first suggested helping homeless wolf cubs, some people had laughed. They said wolves should take care of their own problems without help from the kingdom. But now, even other kingdoms wanted to learn from what they'd built. The healing center opening was everything Sarah had dreamed it would be. Wolves from every corner of the kingdom came to see the clean, bright building with its soft beds and skilled healers. She watched a limping elder wolf get medicine for his sore joints, saw a young mother get help for her sick pup, and met healers who traveled from far away just to learn their methods. But the best moment came when a small girl with tangled hair and torn clothes was brought in by border guards. She'd been found alone in the woods, just like Sarah had been years ago. The little girl's eyes were wide with fear as she looked around at all the strange faces. Sarah knelt down so they were the same height. "Hi there," she said softly. "What's your name?" "Luna," the girl whispered. "Are you going to hurt me?" "Never," Sarah promised. "Do you know what this place is? It's a place where lost wolves find their way home. And do you know what I am? I'm someone who was lost once too, but I found my family, just like you will." As Sarah helped Luna get cleaned up and fed, she caught her father watching from the doorway. His eyes were shiny with tears, but he was smiling. She knew he was thinking the same thing she was, that helping Luna felt like healing their own past. That evening, as the sun set over the kingdom, Sarah stood on her favorite balcony with her father. They watched wolves running free in the forests below, some from royal packs, some from rogue families, all of them safe and protected. "Do you ever miss it?" Theron asked quietly. "The freedom of the wild? The simplicity of survival?" Sarah thought about it for a moment, touching her mother's bracelet. "Sometimes," she said honestly, "but I learned something important. Home isn't a place you find, it's something you build. And sometimes the best homes are the ones where lost things help other lost things find their way." A shooting star streaked across the darkening sky, and Sarah made a wish. Not for herself this time, but for all the lost cubs and forgotten wolves who still needed someone to show them they mattered. Her father put his arm around her shoulders, and for the first time in her life, Sarah felt completely, perfectly whole. The hunt was over. The lost had been found, and tomorrow would bring new chances to help others find their way home too.